All right. Okay, starting to record here. Okay. So, last class, we went through a bit on the Dharma Shastras and looking at how things develop there. And I'm just going to share a screen here. Where is it? Where's my Chrome? There we go. Yeah, where we saw how, this is the Hinduism one, right? Well, let me go back to all the scriptures here that I had put together for you. Yeah, how, first of all, the scriptures, we have the Vedas, which are the revealed texts of all these appendices that have been added on. And so what we were talking about last time was the Dharma Shastras, okay, and the laws of Manu. And these are additional texts that get developed later on that we talked about, that develops sort of the rules of conduct with respect to the caste system and the different stages of life. Your stage of life and the social class you're born into will determine then what your dharma is, what your duties and obligations in life are, right? So scriptures continue to develop, and as time goes on, and the next collection of texts we have are what's called the epics. And what's really central here is the Bhagavad Gita, which is a portion, okay, as you can see here, it is a portion of it's almost like a chapter, if you, it's not really a chapter, but like equivalent to a chapter that's been inserted into a larger text. And the larger text is called the Mahabharata. And this is an epic that's held to be the longest epic in the world, that talks about this great battle that takes place, a family feud that happens, that seems to have perhaps some historical basis, that seems like historical legend that develops over time, of this family feud, where the story and context here is that relatives in this family were playing, you could think of it like playing poker. They were playing a game that involved the rolling of dice, and they were gambling. And so one portion of the family, basically, they put on the betting table their whole kingdom, that if they lost this round in the game, that the other relatives would be able to own and be masters of the kingdom for so many years. But then after a certain time, okay, it's to be given back to the original owners, all right, the other relatives. And that was sort of the game that took place. Well, sure enough, they lost the game, and these relatives inherited or won the kingdom, so to speak. And that is the context here. And so the Bhagavad Gita is a section put into this, okay, which is called the Song of the Lord, which I'll talk about, right? And so let me just stop sharing for a sec. So in the Bhagavad Gita, the story here is where Prince Arjuna is now supposed to be inheriting this kingdom. It is now to rightfully fall into his hands, because the time has run out where the other relatives were to have the rights over the kingdom. Well, guess what happens? Of course, the relatives did not want to hand over the kingdom. And so here's Prince Arjuna. He is now forced to go into battle to fight for the kingdom that is to be rightfully his, but the relatives are resisting giving it over. And he is in a state of agony over this, because here he's forced to go into battle against family, relatives, people he grew up with, went to school with, teachers that were his teachers in school, people he knew and cared for. He was now supposed to go into war fighting these people to get this kingdom that's rightfully his. And so the story of the Bhagavad Gita is contextualized in this sense, where Prince Arjuna is expected to go forth into battle. And he has, driving his chariot is a figure known as Krishna. Okay, Krishna is just a human being driving the chariot. And Arjuna is agonizing over the situation. And I forgot to press record, didn't I? Am I recording? I'm not too sure. No, I am recording. Good. Okay. So Arjuna is agonizing over this. And so he is contemplating, thinking to himself, and speaking out loud. He's saying to Krishna, you know what? I don't want to go into battle. I don't want to fight my relatives. I think I should just simply renounce all of this and become a sannyasi. Okay, an ascetic, someone who has renounced the world, is given up his royalty because he's a kshatriya, he's of the royal class, okay, as a prince and warrior, right? That is his role, his social class that he's born into. He's contemplating renouncing it and just taking up the life of an ascetic, a sannyasi, a renunciate, remember from last class, to then just seek spiritual liberation and just say, forget all of this. Well, what happens is Krishna teaches him and says to him, Arjuna, listen now, it is your dharma. It is your religious and social duty and obligation to fulfill your calling in life, your purpose in life, i.e. your dharma. Usually we think of dharma as purpose, your social obligation, your duty. You've been incarnated into this particular slot in life for a purpose. So it is your duty to fulfill your dharma. Okay, your calling, your mission to be a warrior, to be a prince, to go forth into battle, win this battle and rule the kingdom because it's rightfully yours. Therefore, this is now your duty, your dharma, to fulfill this. It is your purpose and call. You must fulfill it. Okay. Well, Arjuna is like, gee, he doesn't really want to. But Krishna, first of all, he affirms the validity of the Dharma Shastras, the validity of the teachings that, yes, you need to fulfill your duty and obligations in life, your Dharma, number one. But then Krishna goes forward. He says, you can do this in such a way as though you were an enlightened yogi. Okay, as though you were, in a sense, on the sannyasi path of renunciation, in the sense that you do it from the perspective of seeing the truth of things. You see past the illusion that there is an actual battle and war and people are killing each other as though that's the end of it all. It's like, no, the truth is everything is a manifestation of the Supreme Being. And the true self, right, your essential self, the soul, actually never dies, is eternal in nature, was never born, never dies. So this is all a bit of the magical show of appearances, Maya, all right, this whole battle about to take place. So you need to see the truth about things, see past the mirage, the appearances, to the truth that all is a manifestation of the Supreme Being, right? So to have that enlightened perspective and then to go forth in battle, doing it without attachment, doing it where, you're not there with hate and revenge and wanting to kill people. It's like, no, you're fulfilling your duty, but do it without attachment. So that way you're not generating the karma that can be associated with it. So you do it in a detached way. So what Krishna is doing is he's affirming all the past teachings. He's affirming the teachings of the Dharma Shastras to fulfill your duty and calling in life. And he's also affirming the teachings of the Upanishads, that it's all a manifestation of the Supreme Being and what the nature of the true self is and how to not be creating karma while doing what you're expected to do, okay, that you can do it in a detached way. So he's basically affirming all the past teachings. Okay, that you could think could be in conflict with each other. But then he doesn't end there. Then Krishna goes on to teach him that there is yet a higher truth that is to be revealed here, not yet known really to humanity. Okay, so this is where the revelation comes, right? The new revelation, the new teachings. So he's about to present this new yet higher truth about things. And this is then when Krishna transforms. He's no longer a human, but starts to grow and expand and expand and expand. And he becomes the great God Vishnu. And so Arjuna is looking here at the great God Vishnu and can see that within his being, he's containing all of the galaxies spinning, all of the planets, all that is of the universe is contained in his being. And so he reveals that what he thought was a mere human being was in fact the great God Vishnu, who had just incarnated into a human form of Krishna in order to bring forth these new teachings. And what is the new teaching that's being revealed? The new teaching is this, is that the Supreme Being, Brahman, is in fact the great God Vishnu. And Vishnu as a more personal God contains within himself Brahman as the essence of the universe, right? And this more personal kind of idea of God actually controls this essence of the universe as Brahman, okay, controls it, right? And has the power to override human karma, right? And he gives forth the teaching that whoever, through loving devotion and surrender to God as Vishnu or Krishna, okay, Krishna is the incarnation of Vishnu, right? But they're basically seen as one and the same here. Anyone who, through loving devotion to Krishna or Vishnu, okay, and loving surrender, and make just union with the Supreme Being out of love their primary goal, with the attitude that whatever they do here on earth is done as an act of service, loving service towards this personal God of Vishnu, that Vishnu then can just simply eliminate all past karma and set you free from future rebirth. And so you can bypass this difficult journey of having to work so hard to undo your own karma in the hopes of eventually, hopefully, maybe some lifetime, you could get delivered from rebirth. Okay. And so with this message is that simply through loving devotion and surrender to Krishna, right, that karma can be eliminated by an act of grace on the part of God. Okay, it's just through faith, faith and belief, and an act of grace is eliminated. That this is an easier way of attaining liberation from rebirth, right? Being set free from karma. This is an easier way that's now available to humanity in these very dark times that we live. Okay, and tied in with this is the idea that we're now living in a dark age. We're living in a time where it's very difficult for people to attain enlightenment, to do these spiritual practices and actually attain release from rebirth through their own effort. It is very difficult for humans to do this in the context that we're in. And I'll talk more about the cycles of time here later. Okay. But this is the key thing. And so it's held that this is a new teaching, that there is a higher and easier way of being set free from future rebirth and undoing karmic bondage, right? And that easier way is through loving devotion to God in a more personal form. Okay, and here it's presented as Vishnu in the form of Krishna. Okay. That's the easier way. And this easier way is something that's available for everybody. Okay. It's not a path just for, the upper three classes and the males, the Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya class. No, it's available to women, to outcasts, to people, all people everywhere. This is a path that's easier and available to all. And that we need something like these in the dark times that we live in. Okay. So this is the revelation that's brought here in the Bhagavad Gita, okay, to the figure of Arjuna through Krishna. So these new scriptures here, the Bhagavad Gita, this becomes one of the I'm pretty sure you could say it's probably the most popular book in Hinduism. Okay, it becomes extremely popular, and it kicks off what's known as the Bhakti movement, the way of devotion. All right, the way of devotion in Hinduism. Now let me go back to sharing the screen, and I'm just going to pause. Okay, I'm sharing. I think I'm sharing. Yeah, I think I'm sharing. Okay, so this is what leads to the Bhagavad Gita. And as you can see here in the text, I kind of summed this up. It's a dialogue between Prince Arjuna and Krishna. Krishna teaches that Arjuna must go forward into battle in order to fulfill his dharma, his duties and obligations. But he is to do it as an enlightened yogi, seeing the truth past this illusion of, this realm of Maya, this realm of appearances, and to do it with detachment. Okay. And so Krishna then, after affirming these past teachings and traditions, he goes on then to reveal a new teaching, along with revealing his true identity as an avatar, that is an incarnation of the god Vishnu. And is held that Vishnu will come to earth, to this world, time and time again, to restore righteousness, to restore order, to save the world in one way or another as needed. And so Vishnu is going to become here in this period onward one of the most popular gods in Hinduism. Okay, the god Vishnu. So that Indra, Agni, you know, those guys, they kind of drop into the background quite dramatically. Okay, Vishnu and Shiva are going to become the main gods. And so, and we'll talk about that more here in a sec, but Vishnu becomes one of the main deities. And I mentioned previously that Vishnu came in the form of a fish to save Manu from the flood. Okay, and that was a previous incarnation of Vishnu, right? And that's how he saved humanity at that point. And there's many stories of how Vishnu would come and save the world in one way or another. And I'll tell you a couple or more here in a bit. So anyways, so this is the new teaching of Bhakti. Okay, and it's going to launch a movement known as the Bhakti movement, in which Bhakti means loving devotion and surrender. Okay, and largely towards Krishna, but it can also be devoted to other deities, to Shiva, Krishna, or any other form of Vishnu, sometimes Rama. Okay, there's different avatars of Vishnu. Okay, and that this is the way of attaining release from past karma. This is what can bring you hope in terms of the future, and it's an easier path for the dark times we live in. We live in the dark age, Kali Yuga. Kali is dark, Yuga is age. Okay, that's a dark age. And I'll talk more about that in a bit. Okay, so with this text here of the Bhagavad Gita, and as we had earlier here, let me just jump back to the scriptures. Here, the dates, you know, that's very difficult to determine here, but it's around the turn of the Common Era at some point. The Bhagavad Gita is inserted into the larger epic of the Mahabharata, okay, epic, which again developed over hundreds of years. Right, and becomes very, very influential and important. A lot of times the Bhagavad Gita is referred to as being the fifth Veda. It is so highly revered, many devotees hold that it's actually revealed. It's a revelation, that it really is more in the Shruti camp than the Smriti camp, okay, of human tradition, that it is put in this category as a fifth Veda by devotees, a lot of them. All right. Yeah, but anyways, just so you know that's there. Okay, so this is going to launch a huge movement and give rise to a whole new trend in Hinduism known as the Bhakti movement, where the emphasis is going to be on devotion to particular deities as the way of salvation. Okay, as the way of salvation. So let me just there's a little video about the Ramayana epic. Okay, I want you to watch that instead of me explaining it. You can see the whole story there. But Rama is a king, a prince, who then becomes king with his wife Sita. And Rama is also believed to be another incarnation of the god Vishnu. And there's a whole story around that, okay, which you can read or watch that video, okay? And it's very popular. A form of Hindu literature is always enacted in drama, is a very common thing in India. And then you have the Puranas of a later date, and the Tantras and Agamas, again, various texts here. And this is where it becomes very sectarian. In these latter texts, a lot of them are written by devotees of a particular tradition, devotees of the god Shiva or of Vishnu or of the great goddess, or involved in Tantra. And they give different stories of the deities with respect to that particular sect, okay, with that particular sect, okay? And yeah, so that's where it becomes quite sectarian, is in those last two. Okay, hopefully this all makes sense. I really wish it was live in a classroom. It's a lot easier. So now is where Hinduism becomes rather sectarian. And Hindus generally now tend to be devotees to one primary deity, okay, while they still acknowledge the existence of others. And they tend to be devoted to one main deity for their salvation, for their hope of being set free from rebirth and having a better afterlife in some way. They will be committed to one deity predominantly as being the main god, the supreme god. Okay? And so here is where they'll either be devotees of Vishnu, okay? And that could be in the form of Krishna or Rama predominantly, right? Vishnu. And so as a sect, it's known as Vaishnavism, for those who make Vishnu the primary deity that they are devoted to. and looking to for their salvation. This is the key thing. They're looking to this deity for their salvation. And they're known as Vaishnavites, right? And they're usually, and this is where they have markings often on their forehead. It'd be a vertical, it's not vertical, no, it's like, yes, it is vertical marking on the forehead that will identify them as devotees of Vishnu, okay? And they're Vaishnava. Then you have Shaivites. They are devotees of the god Shiva. And so Shaivism is the sect, okay? Shaivites are the devotees of the god Shiva, right? And they would have markings going horizontally. And then there's the Shaktas. They are the devotees of the great goddess. Maha always means great. Dev is divine being, the great goddess, and Shaktism is a sect. So other deities are involved, just many deities, but they are called upon for things in this life, for help in this life. Like, oh, help me be more successful in business, successful at school, heal a sick child, bring good luck, whatever, remove obstacles. They play various roles, and they're like superpowers out there to help you with things in this world, in this life. But in terms of the afterlife, in terms of, quote, salvation, to use that term, that is where you're committed to one primary deity. And what happens is whichever deity people choose, they see that deity, so, you know, be it Vishnu, Shiva, or the great goddess, as being the supreme being, the source and creator of all that is. And then the other deities, okay, are actually usually, you know, subversions of that. So for example, if you go to the Hare Krishna temple, they will have on the side a little image of the god Shiva with the goddess Parvati and whatnot on the side. And who is Shiva? Well, it's just another form of Vishnu. Okay. So that's how they'll kind of assimilate the other deities, is that really those other gods are just different names and forms of our God. And this is what's quite common. Okay, this is what you commonly find. And so they tend to all be monotheists, but believing that their particular vision and perspective and name and form that they're working with is the best one that actually represents the true nature of the supreme being. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. This is what you tend to find. Okay. Again, you know, there's always sweeping generalizations because Hinduism is very complex and very diverse, but that's generally what you would find. Okay, all right, so to look here more specifically, and hopefully you can see all this along with my gazillion tabs open, but I don't like doing present because I always mess it up. Here's an image of Vishnu, okay? And can I do it like this? Make it bigger, there we go, see if that helps. And these are the various incarnations of Vishnu. And so there's quite all kinds of them, and I'm only gonna mention a few. You'll have the fish already mentioned, Krishna, obviously, that I just mentioned. And let me tell you a couple more. Vishnu, there's a story, one of the oldest stories of Vishnu is that once upon a time, eons and eons ago, there was this evil demon that took over the universe and took over the earth and the heavens and got it all under his control. And the gods in the heavens are thinking, oh no, what are we going to do? Panic, this demon took over the whole universe. Well, then Vishnu stands up and he says, you know what, I got an idea. And so Vishnu then comes down to earth and appears before this demon that took over the universe, and comes before him in the form of a dwarf, this little midget. And he comes up to the demon king who's ruling the universe and says, oh, dear master, oh, can I just humbly ask for just a tiny little favor? Could I possibly just get the land that I can cover in 3 steps? And the demon king looks at this little shrimp, this little midget of a being, and says, okay, I'll let you have that. 3 feet, I can give you that. And so then all of a sudden Vishnu, as this little dwarf, expands and grows and becomes the great god Vishnu. And with one step, he claims all of the earth. Another step, he claims all that which is above the earth and the heavens. And then the third step, all that which is below the earth. And that is how Vishnu reclaimed all aspects of the universe, all 3 fundamental realms of reality, right? And conquered and had victory over this demon. And all the gods are cheering him. So that's a story, okay, about Vishnu and one of his incarnations as this dwarf. There's a future it's also held that down the road that he actually incarnated in the figure of the Buddha, okay, in terms of Buddhism, that the Buddha is just an incarnation of the god Vishnu. And there, the teaching and the idea is that Vishnu came in the form of Buddha on earth in order to attract all those who wouldn't be pure and truly loyal to Hinduism, would keep Hinduism its pure form, but would attract all the stragglers and deceivers, and they'd be attracted to this false teacher in a sense. And that then served to purify Hinduism and make it even stronger. Okay, so it's different from what people would think, but that's sort of the idea of how Vishnu incarnated as a figure of Buddha. Okay, it served to strengthen and purify Hinduism by culling it, all right, clearing out people who would be detrimental to it. Then, and I'll talk a little bit more about this when we do the ages and cycles of time. As I mentioned, we're in the Dark Age, and the Dark Age is going to be brought to an end before it kicks off into a brand new golden age. And that's when Vishnu is going to come to earth in the form of Kalki. Kalki, a warrior on a white horse. Okay, and that's the image of him down below there. A warrior on a white horse who will come at the end of this dark age, destroy all evil, right? Clean things up and launch and kick off a brand new golden age where there will be no evil, no suffering. It'll be like paradise on earth, a Garden of Eden restored. Okay, that's going to happen in the future where Kalki will come as a warrior on a white horse to bring an end to this present dark evil age. And that's, again, a lot of things you find similar teachings to Christianity, a lot of things, and you kind of wonder, wow, what's their influence here? And who knows? Because a lot of the text, this is what I'm always amazed at, they weren't written down until the 1700s, okay? So for thousands of years later, so who knows? That's a very difficult thing in both Hinduism and Buddhism, is the dating of a lot of ideas, because everything was oral and not written down for centuries. So anyways, this is Vishnu. Now, every god has a goddess, a consort, sort of like the wife of that deity. And so the wife associated with Vishnu is the goddess Lakshmi. And Lakshmi here is the goddess of wealth, success, and good luck, right? And that's an image of her. And she has a son, Kama, who's the god of pleasure, right? And I mentioned the Kama Sutras last time, right? And so Kama is the god of pleasure. That is her son. And so if you are seeking success in business, some good luck, you would call upon Lakshmi. You would give prayers to her, chant her name. There'd be mantras, words of power associated with her, mandalas, certain kind of geometric kind of patterns. That's sort of part of sacred geometry, that these patterns in these mandalas. Let me just see, I've got a few, when we talk about tantra here. Do I have an actual picture of one? Not really. This is a Tibetan mandala, but they're sort of geometric, squares, circles, and they've got patterns. And they're held that, again, okay, tied in with my other class, it's like these patterns are mathematical kind of structures that tune into a certain frequency, and tied in with that frequency of the image is also a frequency of sound in these words of power, and that you can then tap into that essence of success, money, good luck. There's a certain frequency to it, and you tune into it through the words, the powerful words and the sound vibration of those words, and the geometric object that you're meditating on also tunes into that frequency, and you're tapping into it and activating it when you meditate on that and chant those words, right? That's kind of how things work here. And so, where was I here? So associated with Lakshmi, and again, all the deities, they'll have that. They'll have certain kind of correlated words of power and mandalas, these pictures, symbolic representations that then are held to link into the frequency of that deity and the power, the energy that they represent and embody. Okay, that's really how a lot of this works. And it's very close to what Carl Jung's talking about, archetypal realities. Anyway, so that's her. Now, Vishnu incarnates in the form of Krishna, All right, and so here you've got a lot of imagery about Krishna, and this is a very powerful, and generally you find the Vaishnavite tradition, the emphasis on Vishnu and Krishna and whatnot, is more in northern India, and devotion to Shiva is more southern India. So they tend to be rather geographical in terms of emphasis. And so Radha is the consort, the wife of Krishna. And so here you see imagery in terms of art, and see in a temple, you would find this, it would be a typical kind of actual little doll type like figures that would be there in the altar that people would, and this is what happens here in Hinduism, is they would call upon the deity, you know, if it be Vishnu or Lakshmi or here Krishna or whatever. They invite them to come and be present in the image, that their spiritual essence and beingness would be present in the image. And then they relate to that image as though that God is really there in that image. And there'll be offerings and prayers, food, they'd be dressed, they'd be bathed. They're treated as though they're living beings because they invoked and called upon the spiritual essence and presence to really come and embody these images. Right? And then after some time, you know, usually maybe once a year, I guess, it would probably be the norm, they then would replace the old image with a new one. And so they would ask the deities to leave the image, and they'll get rid of the old ones and put in place brand new images, and then once again call upon them to come and be present in the new images. Okay, this is a common thing done. And so people would go to the temples to pay their respect, to do rituals of what's called puja, P-U-J-A, of devotion. And they may have even some various symbolic representations in their home for their own daily devotional practice. Is very common, very common. And you'll see that, hopefully you're watching some of those videos, okay? So you'll see some of this, all right? Okay. So then we have Shiva here. Okay, now, Shiva is a very ancient deity, and this deity definitely seems to have its roots going way back, probably to the indigenous people, the Dravidians in India. And what we have here with Shiva, I had mentioned, if you remember, way back in the beginning, and I don't want to go there because it takes too long. I know I could pause. I'll pause. Should I pause? Let me pause. Did I pause? The screen sharing pause. No, I want to resume the share. Oh, okay. I guess I paused the screen share, not the recording. Oh, well, yeah. If you remember way back here, okay, this I mentioned is a prototype of Shiva, where Shiva is the Lord of the animals, God of the yogis, you know, and here you'll find he's got horns surrounded by animals, okay. This is very common kind of image, and that is what continues on. And also these goddess figurines, a phallic symbol here, erected penis, the phallus symbol, okay. And so here, where am I here? Where am I? Here, yeah. So Shiva is, again, associated with and regarded as being the Lord of the animals. He's associated with the forest and with wild animals. He's both creator and destroyer. He created the world through dance, and he will destroy the world through dance. He's also the god of the yogis. Okay, so people generally getting into classical yoga, you know, in terms of what we looked at in terms of Patanjali stuff and asceticism, they tend to be devotees of Shiva here. Okay, so he is both creator and destroyer. And what we found also in ancient texts is a reference, the earliest references to Shiva is referred to as Rudra Shiva, where he's the god of thieves, robbers, he brings disease and death to people. And so if you want protection from disease and death, being robbed and attacked, you know, on a trip somewhere, you would call upon Shiva for protection, because the god that brings death and disease Well, he's the one you want to have on your side, because he can then also keep away death and disease. And so this is then what happens is Shiva is the god that brings death, but he can withhold it, and therefore is the god that brings life. He's the god that brings you disease and illness, but he can withhold it and therefore can bring healing and health. Right? So you've got this kind of duality to Shiva, that he's both creator and destroyer, life and death. But it doesn't end there. He also is generally of both sexes. Oh gosh, what's the word that I want there? Oh gosh, I'm just cooking now. You know, he has both male, he's both masculine and feminine. He is dead unless he's in union with the feminine, Shakti, the divine feminine principle. Now I'm trapped here. Let me just, this is, pause the share, not the screen. I want to pause the recording. All right, so to resume recording here. He's sort of an androgynous being, where he's a union of the masculine and feminine. It's not showing up here, but it's going to be the basis of tantra, Hindu tantra, Shiva and Shakti, okay, of the masculine and the feminine are in union. And so you get that duality showing up there, right? And that's why associated with Shiva is very ancient fertility kind of rituals. So a symbol, here we go, that's associated in that regard is what's called the Lingam and the Yoni. And so the Lingam here is, the phallic symbol, that of an erected penis. This here down below is the Yoni, which represents the female vulva. So it's kind of a union of the male and the female together in terms of representing fertility. And that the origins of life and the source of life depends upon a union of the masculine and the feminine, right? The male and the female, right? And so this is something that's very much associated with Shiva, all right? And I'll talk a bit more about that in a sec. Oops. Okay, so you have that. Now there's various goddesses associated with him. Here is an image of Parvati, okay, and their son Ganesha. Okay. Now the story here, okay, before I get to that, Shiva creates and destroys through dance. He also sustains the universe through meditation. So that's why he's the god of the yogis. As he's sitting and meditating, he's upholding the universe, sustaining it, okay. Another image there of him, and there in the middle, that's his dance of creation. That's how he's creating the world through dance. That's the middle image. And when he's destroying the world through dance, he's like a madman chaotically running down a mountain, and that's how he's destroying the universe, bringing it to an end. Okay, so that's sort of some of the imagery and whatnot that's associated with Shiva. Well, there you have his wife and son Ganesha, and the story there is that Shiva was very typical of him. It's just to go and, leave his wife and go out into the universe, who knows where, for a long, long, long time. So he left his wife without realizing that she was pregnant. And so he was gone for a long time. And when he finally did come back, he comes home to see that his wife was having a bath, and guarding the door to her having this bath was a young man. And he thought it was like, who on earth is this person? He thought it was a stranger. So he right away goes, hey, what are you doing? That my wife is having a bath, chops off his head. And then Parvati is having a bath. Oh, my dear husband, Shiva, you're back. Oh, no, you just killed our son. And while you were away, I gave birth to our son like some 20 years ago. And so Shiva realized, oh, my God, what did I do? I killed my son. And he says, oh, the first head that I find, I'll put it on our son. And so it was the head that was that of an elephant. And so he's the elephant-headed god known as Ganesh. And so because of this event, his origins here in this disaster, he is known as the god who removes obstacles, because he overcame the obstacle of having been beheaded. And so if you have any issues that you need help with, an obstacle to overcome, you call upon the god Ganesh. Okay? So he's the son of these two. So that's sort of the story that you have here. So anyways, this is, again, a bit of the backdrop to understanding a little bit about Shiva. As I mentioned, he's also in union with Shakti. Now, the word Shakti here, Shakti is not specifically a goddess. Shakti refers to divine feminine power, okay? The divine feminine power or energy. And that power or energy can take on the form of the various goddesses. So every goddess is basically an incarnated form of Shakti, is an embodiment of that divine feminine power, in a sense. Okay, so Shakti is a more abstract term. It's more of the principle of divine feminine energy. All right, and so what we have here, and I think that's the next slide as well, isn't it? Talk about tantra. Yeah. Okay. Whoops. I am. Just go back. Oh, I never know. There we go. So associated then with Shiva is tantra, and tantra involves a union of Shiva, the masculine, divine masculine, and Shakti, the divine feminine. Okay, a union of these two energies, masculine, feminine energies are united. And Shiva is only alive when he's in union with Shakti. If he's not in union with the divine feminine, he just becomes this dead corpse. There's no life in him, right? So she brings life into him. Then he's a living being of power, right? So she's really his power, right? And life force within him. So what develops here is associated with Shiva and Shakti is a spiritual practice known as tantra. And you have two different forms of tantra. There's what's called left-handed tantra, right? And then right-handed tantra. Left-handed tantra involves, and this is why right hand is always seen as a dominant hand, and right hand means this is good, this is acceptable. Left-handed is like suspicious, and it's on the edges of society, okay? It involves taboos, social taboos. The social taboo of a sexual union outside of marriage, okay? A union between a man and a woman, where the man becomes a representation and embodiment of Shiva, and the woman an embodiment and representation of Shakti. And so as there is a sexual union, it's actually achieving a union of Shiva and Shakti. They become one, right? That's sort of the goal there. And that will also involve the ingestion of various substances that are held up to be as taboo, like meat, okay, and fish, wine, sort of intoxicants, and parched grains. They're known as to be aphrodisiacs, okay? They kind of stimulate sexual arousal. So the digesting of substances and the sex act, these are seen as taboos. Now, it's not like, okay, I'm going to go to a party on the weekend, have sex with some guy and eat lots of meat and get drunk. That's not what it's about. It involves really decades of training, highly disciplined, a lot involved with this, all right, to actually do it. And it's held that by doing all this, you literally are attaining a type of state of enlightenment. And the key behind tantra, both left and right-handed tantra, is you are using tools and methods to leave this world of experiential diversity, this world of duality, this world of the many, of separation, of a me separate from you, a Shiva separate from Shakti, okay? You're leaving that, or working with processes to kind of go back to the point of oneness, of Brahman unmanifest, that state of pure oneness before things manifested in this world of the many. So you're basically reversing this creation of this world where there's separation and difference, right? You're reversing that to go back to that state of pure oneness, formless oneness, and the source of all that is before it manifests in this world of the many. That's sort of the goal here, right? So to bring Shiva and Shakti into union of that oneness before there's a separation of male and female, before there's that duality of masculine, feminine, this and that, night and day, life and death, etc., right? You're going back to that oneness. And the same thing with right-handed tantra. Here, there's just different practices involved. The meditation, and the use of mandalas, the use of mudras, mantras, and Kundalini yoga. And let me just, okay, I guess that's all on the next slide. Whoops. Kundalini yoga. See this? Where am I here? No, that's not what I want. Okay, go there. No, geez, it goes too fast. Stay. Okay. So in Kundalini yoga is a form of right-handed tantra. And so it works with the power centers in the body. As you can see, they're called the chakras, and is held that there is like the Kundalini is sort of this energy that's latent at the base of the lowest chakra. Okay, that is where Shakti, the Shakti divine feminine, resides. And it's just dormant there. And you need to raise up that energy from the lowest chakra and raise it up through each of the chakras in the body up to the crown chakra up here. That's where Shiva is. Okay, so you're trying to effect a union of Shakti down at the bottom to Shiva up on top, bringing about a union of those energies. That is then what will bring about enlightenment, where you come into that state of oneness, right? That pure being of oneness, right? That's sort of the goal of Kundalini Yoga. So that's a form of right-handed Tantra. Okay? Then there's also other practices that involves the meditation on a mandala. And this is actually a Tibetan mandala, okay, not a Hindu one, because this tantric tradition, both left and right-handed, goes into Buddhism. Okay, and they'll have their versions of it in a Buddhicized way, especially in Tibetan Buddhism. Okay, it's both, it's very much tantric in nature. So a mandala is sort of what you would meditate on, and through meditating on the mandala and the use of mantra, those words of power that I mentioned, and mudras, mudras are particular finger and hand gestures and positions, and is held that, again, bringing the body, the words, the focus of the mind, as you meditate and focus on, it's a way by doing this that you're becoming one with the universe. Let's put it simplistically. That these are all tools to help you tune in to transcend the world of the many, to go beyond it into that state of unity, all right, in a state of ultimately held to be enlightenment. That's the end goal, in a sense, okay? So just to give you a bit of an idea, all right? Believe me, it's very complex, a lot involved with all this, so don't worry about it too much, okay? Oops. Wish it was, okay, it always goes to, just, oh, yeah, see, good. Now, Mahadev, excuse me, the great goddess. Oh, and I meant to read some, yeah, I will do that as well. So Mahadev, okay, as I mentioned, means great goddess. There are those who are going to be devotees of the great goddess, where she is held to be the supreme being. Okay. And the great goddess appears in many forms, and these are the more they're mostly popular and associated with Shiva, okay, with the deities and the goddesses associated with Shiva. So Durga is the one on the right here, and riding a tiger. She's a warrior goddess, and as a warrior goddess, she's out to destroy evil, and a ferocious destroyer of evil, but let's say, looks very nice. But she has extreme power, unbelievable power to destroy evil. And then Kali is the dark goddess. Kali literally means dark, and that's her there in the blue, with holding heads that have been chopped off, body parts hanging, making up her skirt. Those are chopped up arms and heads that make up her clothing. And she's standing on top of bloody skulls. To her, human sacrifices had been given in the past. And she's also a ferocious goddess that destroys evil. And she also, as you can see, they're all carrying a symbol that's associated with Shiva. All right, the threefold kind of staff that they're holding, that's always associated with Shiva. So the great goddess seems to also be very ancient deity, going way back to indigenous times and indigenous people as a great goddess. That is very, very powerful and is very, very ancient. And so that's her that people would be devoted to in terms of Shakti, Shaktism. Okay, whoops. So, see. Okay, now let me just read to you some passages here. I meant to read to you earlier, and I forgot. From the Bhagavad Gita, just to give you a bit of an idea here of how this is understood here, some passages, all right, where Krishna is speaking like this. Krishna, Vishnu in the form of Krishna to Arjuna, says this. just to give you an idea of bhakti. Whosoever offers to me with devotion a leaf, a flower, fruit, water, that offering, if it's done with love and out of the pure heart, I will accept. So whatever you would do, whatever you would eat, whatever you would offer, whatever you would give, whatever disciplines you would practice, do it as an offering to me. That is then how you shall be free from the good and evil results, which are the bond of karma. Okay, the bondage of karma. You'll be set free from it if whatever you do is an offering to me. I am the same to all beings. No one will be favored by me or despised by me, but those who worship me with devotion, they will be in me and I will be in them. For those who take refuge in me, O Arjuna, even if they be of the low castes, women, whoever they are, the servants, the Sudras, they shall attain the highest goal. Fix upon me thy mind, be devoted unto me, worship me, revere me. And then having disciplined yourself as such with me as your goal, then you shall overcome. Okay? You shall be saved from the bondage of karma. Okay? So let's just give you an example of how that works. And then again, how through Krishna it says that I am the supreme being is sort of the idea. Another passage. By me, all of this universe is pervaded through my unmanifested form, i.e. I am present everywhere, all right, present in all things. All beings abide in me, but I am not dependent on them. My spirit is the source of all beings, sustaining those beings, but I do not depend upon them. Okay, so all of the universe is in Krishna, has its source in Krishna, depends upon Krishna, but Krishna does not depend upon the universe as its source of being. Okay? So that's sort of the idea there. Now here, this is where you can see a classic example of sectarianism. So for in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, Vishnu is the supreme being, ta-da. Well, here in a text devoted to the great goddess, it goes like this. Okay, so here the god Brahma addresses the goddess and says to her, oh, great goddess, by you this universe is born. By you this world has been created. By you it is protected. And you, O Devi, you shall consume it, destroy it at the end. You are above all. You are the Shakti, the power of all things, living and not living. You are the soul of everything. Who is capable of praising you? You who have given form to all of us, Vishnu, Shiva, and myself. Right? So here, for a devotee of the great goddess, okay, they hold that she is the source of all that is, the creator of all that is. She will create, she destroys, she sustains and preserves it all. She does it all. And she's the one who created the male gods. Okay, they're dependent upon her for their existence. So this is why I was saying it becomes sectarian. People will choose the deity that they're going to be devoted to, but they're the ones that are seen as being the supreme source of all that is. The creator of all, the destroyer of all, the preserver of all. This is where it becomes very sectarian. All right. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay. All right. Okay. So another goddess I want to mention that's important here, in terms of very influential, is Sarasvati. She's the goddess of learning, speech, the arts, culture. She's the consort of Brahma, which I'll talk about here in a sec. Not Brahman with an N, but Brahma as a deity that's really not that important. Okay. It's already mentioned this, that the goddess Shakti is the energy, power, life force of the male deity. Otherwise, they're lifeless unless they're in union with Shakti. Right? That's already mentioned that earlier. So that in the school system, Sarasvati would always be present. There'd be devotion to her by all the kids in the school. It's a very important thing in terms of Hindu practice and culture, because she's the goddess responsible for that area in life, and people would be devoted to her and pay respects in that regard. Okay? Then we have Brahma. Here's some pictures of Brahma. Let me move my little thing here. So what we have here is, this is sometimes referred to as the Trimurti. Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Now, Brahma is not a deity that people really worship. There's virtually no temples in devotion to him, maybe one or two in all of India, whereas there's literally thousands to Shiva and Vishnu and the goddesses. But really nothing here. He just shows up as a more personal form with the name Brahma, and shows up as being kind of responsible for the creation of the universe, in the sense that it's put into ages and cycles, that the universe, it gets created and is preserved for a bit and then gets destroyed. Then it's recreated, preserved for a bit, and then destroyed. And so there's like this endless cycles of creation and destruction, okay, of the universe, okay, these ages in time. And so the way it gets put together, again, this is where Hindu priests or whoever try to synthesize different teachings and traditions that show up on the whole bloomin' subcontinent of India, which is really complex. So they're always trying to synthesize and integrate it, even though it really can pose problems sometimes. So they put it the idea that, well, Brahma is the one who creates, Vishnu preserves it and sustains it, and then at the end Shiva destroys it. And then Brahma will recreate it, Vishnu will preserve it, and Shiva then again will destroy it, right? That they all each have their role in the right place and time, so there's a harmony between the gods, okay? But what actually happens is a Vaishnavite, a devotee of Vishnu, say, well, Vishnu is the one that will create it, preserve it, and then destroy it, taking on the form of Shiva to destroy it, all right? Taking on the form of Brahma maybe to create it, but Vishnu does the whole job, right? And then a devotee of Shiva say, well, really, it's Shiva. Shiva is the creator. He sustains it through meditation, and then he destroys, he does the whole shebangy, okay? And then I just read to you the passage regarding the great goddess. She's the one who does all. She creates, she preserves, and she destroys, okay? So because ultimately it's very sectarian, but in terms of some of the literature, they have it presented that these three all each have their role in harmony, that the three gods are in harmony of creating and preserving and destroying the universe, right? Okay, so how it's seen is that this universe exists for a period that's called like 100 years in God time. This is the life of Brahma, okay? The universe exists in God time. And here is where I am going to, first of all, I'm going to pause and I'm going to share a whiteboard and make this work, hopefully. So I'm going to just pause this for a second. Okay. Alrighty, hopefully this is working here. Now let me just use my spotlight thing so maybe you can see me. Okay, spotlight, okay. All right, so this is how it works in terms of their understanding of time. Oh boy. So this is called, okay, the life of Brahma is 100 years in God years, not human years. Now, of course, in a year, there's so many days. And this is an example of one day of Brahma is this one big circle. Okay, and that's one day. That's when the world is created and it continues to exist for a whole day before it gets restored, because what comes, the night of Brahma is when everything's destroyed. Okay, and so within one day of Brahma, you'll have what's called one kalpa. So this circle here is one kalpa, right? And one day has, this is one kalpa, but it's going to be I'm all confused. Yeah, one day is one kalpa. Within this one day, okay, there's going to be 1,000 of these that are called Mahayugas. Okay, there's going to be 1,000 of these circles, and it's going to go round and round and round and round and round 1,000 times, and that's going to make up one day, and one day is one kalpa. All right, did you get that? Yeah, you know what? I'm going to get myself a whiteboard so I can do this in a different way, because this is just not very good. So hopefully you got that, okay? So that one day of Brahma, which is called a kalpa, okay, one kalpa is one day, because I don't know how to move these boxes around. And within that one day, there's 1,000 of these bigger circles that go around that make up one day. Now, within each of these Mahayugas, each one contains 4 yugas. They're made up of 4 circles. Okay, and if I could draw it differently, and we just have it like a circle of 4, like 4 cycles going around here. So 4 yugas or 4 ages make up one great age. And that happens for 1,000 times. So basically like 4,000 smaller ages, okay, that make up one day before the world is destroyed. Okay. Now, each age, it begins with a golden age. So maybe I should put in a text here, okay? Okay, you'll have a golden age is the first age here. That'd be the first age. That's when it's easy to become enlightened. There is no suffering. It's like paradise on earth. It's fantastic. Okay. And people, you know, it's easy to become enlightened if you even want to seek it. Who knows? Because it's so great here on planet Earth. It's like a Garden of Eden. But then at each consecutive age, things get darker and darker and darker. And there's more and more evil, more and more suffering. There's a loss and decay of civilization. Things become more barbaric. Okay, evil and dark on this planet until we get to the Dark Age. Okay, or Yuga, Kali Yuga, or the Dark Age, okay, from the Golden Age to the Dark Age. The Dark Age is the last one. And that is when, as I had mentioned, well, it's kind of right here, Kalki comes as that warrior on a white horse, which is Vishnu incarnated. The avatar is an incarnation of Vishnu in the form of a white warrior on a horse that's going to destroy this dark age and kick off the new golden age. All right, and that's what's going to happen. Right, golden age to dark age, that will happen once, and then we go on to the next golden age to dark age, golden age to dark age, and it goes around circle after circle after circle, all around 1,000 times to make up one day. Then the universe is destroyed. And destroyed meaning it's like taking that chunk of clay that was in different forms and shapes. It gets pulverized into just being this cosmic soup of clay. It's not like there's nothing there. It's just formless and chaotic. And it's like this cosmic soup floating in the universe for a night. And then it's going to get recreated, refashioned. The new forms are going to be recreated, and we'll have a new creation, a new universe for another day. And then it gets destroyed again. And then another day and night, a day and night, 365 days in a year. And that will go on for 100 years. That is the life of the universe, right? So you can imagine how long that would be, especially when it go 1,000 times of these ages, and each one is has 4 ages in it. And that's like 4,000 times just for one day, right? Within 1 year, there's 100 years, and then there's a night, equally in time. So this is in God years and God time, right? Hopefully you're not too confused and get this. Anyway, so to give you a bit of an idea, we are now in the Dark Age, the Kali Yuga. It began in the year 3102 BC, sort of the standard date given when we've entered into the Dark Age. And it's just going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. And it's going to go on for 432,000 years before this present Dark Age comes to an end, and Kalki, warrior on white horse, comes and destroys it and instigates a new golden age, and then we'll go on to the next age. Okay, the next age, the golden age, and then it'll do its cycle of 4 to make up a Mahayuga. And that's going to go on 1,000 times just for one day. All right. So just to give you an idea of how long one day is, it's 4,320,000,000 years. It's just one day, right? And that will be one day, and then there's a night of that same time, and then the next day, and on it goes to make up 100 years. So the time is just, the sense of time here in India is just phenomenal compared to what, the Western traditions. But what I like to do, I hope you have a sense of this. This will go on for, 100 years, God years, right? And here you just have this one age, the time frame, okay, 432,000 years, right? Okay, that's just for this little tiny age with this one of these 4 circles of there's going to be 1,000 of these that just make up one day, and then there's I'll go on for again 100 years. Like that's a long time. You know what that adds up to? 100 Brahma years in terms of human time. All right, I'll just give you an idea. 155,520,000,000,000 human years. That's what it adds up to. Okay, 155,520,000,000,000 human years. That's how much 100 Brahma years is like. And so I just like to bring this in just so that people have perspective when we're talking about, I don't know, what's the US debt heading now? 20 trillion, is it? When politicians are throwing around billions, right? And doing this here, that's 4,320,000,000 years. That's just one day. When they're throwing around billions of dollars, wake up, people, in terms of the money that's involved here. We're so disconnected from how big, insanely big these numbers are for the debt the politicians are bringing us into. It's insane, total insanity. People, they should be marching on the streets and protesting this, I tell you. All right, if they realize how big these numbers are. And hopefully you kind of get what I'm saying here. Okay? I just have to put this in because it's just insane. Okay, so anyway, there you go. This is the concept of time here. This is how it's seen, that it's cyclical. And it keeps on going like this. This cycles from golden age to dark age, golden age to dark age, golden age to dark age. Then it's destroyed. And then it's recreated, and it keeps going, and it keeps going, this endless cycle. And so then with this scenario, with this immense sense of time, this is why reincarnation is not a great thing to look forward to. You want to get outside of this whole system, okay? And because this is the concept of time and how it's understood here, it's not that great. So it becomes a huge burden to be set free from. Right. Oh, and that's what I should mention. That in the journey here, if there's, say the world is destroyed and you've got your baggage of karma, what happens is that everything's just on hold. During the night of Brahma, everything's on hold. And once the universe is recreated for the next day, you'll continue on the journey of dealing with your karma and the cycle of rebirth. You'll pick up from where you left off, okay, on the previous day. So that's kind of how it's seen here. All right? Okay. So now let me just pause this for a sec here. All right. Okay. So hopefully kind of made sense of that. Okay. So here is just again run down the cycle of time. The life of Brahma, 100 years. One day is made up of 1,000 Mahayugas, and each one of these is made up of 4 yugas, always beginning with the golden age, ending with the dark age. And Kalki will bring it to an end, the dark age, and start the next golden age. And that's again Vishnu Avatar. At the end of one day, the world is destroyed. It's like everything's asleep, and then it gets recreated for the next day of the same formless material to be destroyed again at the end of the day. And this goes on for 100 God years. And then it will be the end of this universe as we know it. Then it's held like, then it's destroyed into nothing, pure nothingness, until the gods decide to play again. And so when it's asked, why is it that there's something instead of nothing? Why is it that the gods decided to create this universe and do this whole game? It's seen as a form of play. Okay, it's just out of the pure joy of playfulness. Leela, it's called Leela. It's just for the joy of play that there is creation. And so creativity and play go together all the time. And that's how it's seen. So I think this is my last slide here in terms of some concluding remarks. Hinduism is highly diverse, encompassing and including virtually every type of religious perspective and practice, allowing a great deal of freedom and choice. It's a matter of personal preference in how one chooses to relate to the divine. As often said, Hinduism has something for everybody, depending on their personality type. For the intellectual, there's the way of knowledge, jnana marga, very philosophical, difficult path of realizing the supreme being as Brahman nirguna, without qualities, Satchitananda, pure being, pure consciousness, pure bliss. Right? For the more practical person, there's the way of action or karma marga, to fulfill one's dharma with selfless service and non-attachment, right? That's sort of based on the dharma shastras, right? The caste system, you know, fulfilling your duties and obligations in life. Whereas the way of knowledge is sort of predominantly based on the Upanishads, okay? Then there's the third type. For the more people of the heart, emotional type, there's Bhakti Marga, the way of devotion, which involves devotion to a primary deity of one's choice. And most Hindus practice elements or aspects of all paths in a way that suits them. They kind of provide their own sort of synthesis that, you know, again, it becomes sectarian. They could be a devotee of Shiva, but really into the way of knowledge and a lot of yoga that they would practice in the classical sense, but yet also fulfill their dharma, you know, in ways. It's kind of a blending of them, right? But some will be more strict in being very dedicated to the way of devotion, you know, and a real emphasis there. Like, again, they'll have their differences, and again, it's up to people how they want to practice it, okay? So anyways, but generally it's held that there really fundamentally is one supreme being, but many ways of attaining union with that divine, however that's conceived. Some are emphasize God as more personal, others as more impersonal and abstract, others more masculine, others more feminine, others in this form of Shiva versus Vishnu. You know, again, there's that diversity. Okay, and I think, and then, okay, yeah, you've got the videos to watch. Wow. Well, I hope that all makes some sense. I think I kind of pretty much covered all that I want to cover to give you a bit of an idea of Hinduism. All right. Okay. So I better shut this down here. That's a lot of material. And it's probably going to be a pretty long video. All right. Take good care and see you guys live in class.